So here's a view of our kitchen after the granite's been totally installed. You can see we've got a few articles sitting on it already, but we're still keeping it fairly clear because we have some work to do back here. We're going to put the backsplash on first before we get our sink installed fully. Just to get that done ahead of time. It really needs to be done ahead of finishing off the sink. So that's what we're going to do in the next day or two, is put the backsplash up. Just showing the other portions of the countertop, a little more detail. First thing we have to do though, before we put the backsplash up, is we have to run a bead of silicone along the edge of the granite countertop and the wall here. That'll be the first level of protectant that will prevent water from getting in behind the granite and going down the wall. Then after we're finished tiling, we'll probably put a second layer of silicone over that area just to provide a bit more protection. So we did that, and we had to let that cure for 24 hours. So today we're going to begin the actual backsplash itself. Yesterday we measured the distance of the countertop. We did quite a few measurements to try and estimate where our tiles were going to lay out on the wall. So we ran a whole string of tiles along the length of the countertop just to see where they would fall as far as their grout lines. And we're pretty happy that we'll be able to just use a full tile to begin with on this side. Now sometimes you begin in the middle, under the window here for example. But when we laid the tiles out, we found that if we use a full tile to begin and just continue with that row, there's a nice dividing line here right in the middle anyhow, so we don't really need to start in the middle. We also did some estimates for the distance up to the outlets. We have 2 outlets that we have to go around, so not many compared to many jobs. This wall is about 13.5 feet long. Under the cabinetry here, we're talking about 17.5 inches in height. Under the window, we've got about 8 inches or so, and there's a little bit of a gap left over there that we're not sure how we're going to deal with yet. It's probably too fine to cut a sliver of tile for, but we'll see how that goes. Anyhow, so we're going to begin that today. And the first thing I'm going to do today, right now, is cover the counter here with garbage bags, just to prevent any of the thin set that we're going to use to adhere the tiles to the wall, just to prevent any of that thin set from getting on the new counters, obviously. So I'm going to tape some garbage bags along the counter here. So this just shows how I've taped the garbage bags down at the back of the wall and countertop interface. I left about a 3/4 inch strip of bare countertop showing, which I put the tape to. And that just keeps the grout work and the thin set that we'll be putting on the wall here off of the countertop for the most part. So here's the tiles we chose to cover the backsplash. These are 4x12 ceramic tiles, and you may not be able to see it that well in the video here, but they're actually a beige color. We thought that the beige of the tiles might help to accent the pinkish, beigeish colors in the rock here, in the countertop. And we've gone back and forth on the choice of these tiles. Originally we were thinking of something quite dark back there, and then we just thought, well, maybe that'll be too dark. And then we were talking about other styles and colors as well. It's been really confusing as to know which tiles it might be best to go for. We've contemplated white tiles as well, smaller ones, and we weren't sure that was going to look so great either. So anyhow, we're going to go ahead with these, I think. So we're going to put them in a 50% offset style of stacking like this, with an 1/8 inch grout line in between. Now we know, since we're going to be stacking these on a 50% offset basis, that To start with, we're going to have at least a couple tiles cut in half, just because the row above the first row will have a half tile to overlap with the first full tile. And we've got at least 2 or 3 more rows, 4 rows perhaps, under there. So I'm going to cut a couple tiles at this point, and then we'll cut more as we need them in the future. As we get towards the outlets as well, we'll be having to cut tiles, and also around the window frame and under the cabinets probably as well. So I'm going to try cutting a couple of these right now just on our little pull tile cutter machine we have here. We also do have a tile saw that we're borrowing off a relative, and we'll probably use that for the more elaborate cuts. I'm hoping this thing can do the straight cuts fairly easily. So I've marked the tile at the halfway point here. Now I'm just going to draw this cutter over it once or twice, and hopefully it'll snap in half fairly easily. Basically, you just score the coating. Now hopefully, there we go. A beautiful, nice, clean cut. There we go. Another nice cut. Okay, we're just getting ready to start the backsplash. Putting the adhesive on. We're using a pre-mixed adhesive, and I'm going to work up the back wall, maybe half the height of it here so far, and then over towards this outlet. Do that first, and then start setting some tiles. We've got a 1/4 inch trowel we're going to use here for spreading it later. For the initial application, I'm just going to use one of these metal 4-inch wide spatula knives to put it on. Put it on fairly liberally, and then spread it with this trowel.
So we need to, I'm just going to let you do the stuff underneath, right? So I'm just putting them on.
This here.
We'll switch jobs in a minute and see how you do better.
So we're gradually progressing here with the tiles on the back northwest wall here. It's a slow progress for sure. Trying to be speedy and yet careful. It's a tricky combination, but you gotta get the thin set on the wall properly, hopefully, and then you gotta get the tiles going on top of each other in the right orientation and cutting different pieces and whatnot. Just making some cuts for the outlets here. They worked out fairly well so far.
Okay, now we need the next. This one goes on there.
Gradually progressing, slow job, working our way out under the window. And there's that little gap we have up at the top. That's under the top second tile there. We're going to have a 1/2 inch gap. And we weren't sure how to deal with that one. We didn't want to raise the bottom tiles to make up for it. And we didn't want to increase our grout line width. We were already at 1/8 of an inch. So we'll probably just either fill that in with sliver tiles or maybe get a little chunk of wood and put it in there and paint it white to match the windowsill. Not sure yet how we're going to deal with that, but one of the minor things that you encounter sometimes when you're tiling. Sometimes there's answers, sometimes there isn't.
It says not to leave it too long, remember? It said not to leave it 24 hours
Well, he
because
was talking about getting it out of the grout lines, like the thin set out of the grout lines. Doesn't hurt to leave this stuff drying longer. Is that ready to go on?
That's just fit. I'm just gonna back to it because it needs the corner by the window done. And then you can cut the one above it. There's a thin one above it that needs to be cut. Well, we're doing okay. I think we'll be all right, Tom.
Well, I'm thinking maybe for this side, we shouldn't do the little ones at first. Leave them.
Oh, okay. Good one. That's a good cut on it. Go.
Key with these things is to put them on close to the other tiles initially and then move them away from the other tiles when you put these spacers in. That way you won't get a bead of thin set pushing up in between the grout lines. Working around the next outlet here. Had to make a fancy cut on the tile saw to go around it. Come along, not too bad, I think.
The problem is, that thing has to be unscrewed. Damn it. Give me a minute. I forgot about that.
Faster, faster, it's drying on the wall.
Stop,
I
please.
can't, I don't think we're gonna make it. Everything's going so fast. This stuff over here is drying, Diane. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? It's a nightmare, this job.
This will go under it. Did we get these off enough? I guess we did.
Working in the dark here because we got the power off to hopefully prevent getting electrocuted.
Come on, loosen that up. Can you loosen that one up with the plow, the drill? That did it so good. Good job. Okay, so we.
Okay, we're gradually progressing across the wall here. We've almost got it all filled in. We just have the very end down there, and then up under the cabinets we have some thin slices to cut to fill in the gap under the cabinets. But otherwise we're almost finished with the tile laying. And then that's supposed to have at least a day's worth of setting, I think, before we attempt to do any grouting. So I'm not sure we'll get the grouting tomorrow or maybe the next day, because we're late in the day today, so we'd pretty well have to leave it all day tomorrow anyhow. So we'll probably get to the grouting on Wednesday maybe. Are you enjoying this job?
Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Yep.
Would you recommend it?
Oops.
So these 4x12 tiles are good in that they go on quite quickly. If you're using a much smaller tile, like a 3x6 or whatever, you're going to have probably 3 times as many tiles. They do have a nice look about them as well when you have more tiles. It just depends on the look you're trying to get, I guess. But hopefully these will look okay with the new countertops. This just shows some of our tile work around the outlet here. Quite precise and accurate using the tile saw. I think I found a new occupation that I'd like to explore. Does anyone want any tiling done in their house? Look at this fine work here. Here's the other outlet that we had to go around. We actually had to make a few cuts here because we were making slight errors in getting the tiles down low enough to go behind the ears of the outlet. Those little ears that you see at the top and bottom have to lay on the tiles. And I made a couple cuts where the holes were too big. Okay, 6 o'clock, and we're just finishing up putting in the last piece of tile here in the extreme corner area. Up under the cupboards, a bunch of narrow slices of about 1.5 inches in width had to be cut using the main tile cutter here, not the saw, just the draw knife or whatever you call it. And we're a bit tired, and we got a lot of cleaning up to do tonight before we can settle down too. So it's an interesting job. It's fun in some ways, but just a little messy. And hopefully it will all be worth it in the end. If not, I guess we'll just have to rip all the tiles off the wall again. Start over. And there we are. Oh, you're taking some of the gappers out down there, are you?
Cleaning
You
it
think
out.
it's safe?
Yep. Cleaning it out as I go, and then you'll see it.
Anyhow, lots of fun. It certainly helps to have at least 2 people working on the job. It's difficult to do a video like this when you're working on it. It would be better to have someone else entirely doing the filming, but we'll do what we can while we're working. It's hard because your hands are constantly getting dirty, and you don't want to be touching the camera when your hands are dirty, so it's constantly cleaning and constantly getting messy again. So anyhow, this will rest for a day or so, I think, and then we'll put the grout in, and that's a whole different ball game.